Hi, this is a new segment that I've added. This is called BTS, or Book Talk Saturdays. It's basically where I synthesize a book that's really going to help your guys' lives. Today I chose How to Win Friends and Influence People by Dale Carnegie. I mentioned this one in a bunch of other videos. I have all of the points that he made in this book synthesized. There's techniques in handling people, 6 ways to make people like you, win people to your way of thinking, be a leader, how to change people without giving offense or arousing resentment, and then we have some quotes. After each of these, we're going to have an actionable step. The first thing we're going to talk about is techniques in handling people. This includes don't criticize or complain, give honest and sincere appreciation, and arouse in the other person an eager want. We're going to break each of these down one by one. Number 1, don't criticize, condemn, or complain. When criticizing, condemning, or complaining about anything to another person, you automatically make them dislike you. Why is this? Because you're associating a negative connotation to your personal name. If all I did was complain on camera, there'd be nobody watching me. You cannot complain, condemn, or criticize other people in front of another because they think that you're going to do that to them. It's number 1. Give honest and sincere appreciation. This is being grateful, just giving genuine compliments. We hear this all the time. If you really want somebody to like you, you have to give them a genuine compliment, something that you actually truly feel. People know when you're being authentic. Authenticity, not only paired with a compliment, but a genuine, authentic comment makes people like you. It's simple. Arouse in the other person an eager want. I didn't really know what this meant when I first read the book, and I still kind of have to flip this to my narrative. But what this means to me is that you want an eager want for the person to want to talk to you. Let's say, for instance, I'm talking with a friend, and I have to provide them value. We can even flip this to the YouTube channel. If I didn't provide you guys with value, an eager want for you guys to keep coming back, you wouldn't watch. Simple. So every single conversation that you have to provide value so that people have that eager want to talk to you. We're going to give you an actionable step for each of these. First, I want you to stop criticizing, condemning, or complaining at all. Just don't do it anymore. No longer do you need to do any of those. Give honest and sincere appreciation. Practice this by giving one genuine, authentic compliment every single conversation. I recommend writing these down so that you don't forget. And arouse in the other person an eager want. Provide value with each conversation that you start so that you always have an eager want for the person to come back and talk to you again. That was the first section. I'll put chapters in the video so that you know what I'm talking about. The next section is 6 ways to make people like you. Become genuinely interested in other people. Smile. Remember that a person's name is to that person the sweetest and most important sound in any language. Super important. Be a good listener. Encourage others to talk about themselves. Active listening. Talk in terms of the other person's interests. Make the other person feel important and do it sincerely. We'll break these down one by one. Become genuinely interested in other people. I see a lot of posts on the social skills subreddit where people are like, how do I fake like people? How do I pretend that I like people? You can't do that. People are going to know that you don't like them. That's just human nature. Instead of thinking, how can I fake like people? Think, how do I form a genuine interest in people? And I have a skill for this. I actually know how you form genuine interest in people. I know how you start to like people. You start to like people by removing yourself at the top, because it's an ego thing. I have this too. You have to stop thinking that you're better than other people, because if you're being honest with yourself, and you need to be honest with yourself, you're not better than anybody. You're just a human. We're all just humans. You need to remove any ego when it comes to conversation and social skills. And do this right now. Remove any ego, because if not, you're not going to make any progress. Your ego is holding you back. Smile. This one's pretty obvious as well. When you smile, people like talking to you when you smile. You don't have to force a smile, but even just like a slight smile is fine. I don't really have a smiling guide. I might have to create one, because smiling is kind of a hard skill if you don't smile often. Remember that a person's name is to that person the sweetest and most important sound in any language. Say people's name. people like when you call them their name. I might get asked, what about nicknames? Nicknames are cool if you're close because it's to them, their name for you. We'll break that down. If I am hanging out with you and your name is Joshua, and I call you Joshua and I call you Joshua, and you're like, this guy's cool. And then eventually, let's say about 6 months into our relationship, I start calling you Josh. You're like, why are you calling me Josh? I'm like, it's just a nickname for Joshua. And then boom, it's cool because like I gave it to you. And you don't want to start with a nickname. I used to make that mistake. Start with their actual name, and then the more that you form a connection, go to nicknames. Be a good listener. Encourage people to talk about themselves. That's all in the same step. That's active listening. I did an entire guide on active listening. Active listening, you're basically engaged in what the person is talking about. And this goes back to becoming genuinely interested in other people. You have to, or else you won't be able to actively listen. We'll break it down in like 4 steps. Have good posture. Keep good body language. Make sure that the person knows you're listening with your body language. So you do like this, you do like this. Something to alert the person to know that you're listening. Have good eye contact and ask them questions to keep them further talking about themselves. That's active listening in like 6 steps. Talk in terms of the other person's interests. If you were very into motorcycles or bikes, I wouldn't try to talk to you about volleyball or content creation or stuff that I'm interested in. I would ask you more about what kind of bikes do you ride? How long have you been riding bikes? What's your favorite bike that you own right now? What was your first bike? Give me a story about a time you injured yourself. How have you made friends riding bikes? You can create multiple questions based on another person's interests, and that gives you like 45 minutes, an hour, 2-hour conversations just talking about the other person's interests. And the more they're talking to you about their interests, the more they like you. Crazy thought. Make the other person feel important and do it sincerely. This is kind of niche, and not a lot of people talk about this, but when you make people feel important, it makes them feel good. For instance, let's say we're gonna go back to the bike example. Let's say that you're a BMX pro, and I wanna learn how to get into bikes. I'm gonna be like, dude, you're sick. You're really good at riding bikes. Tell me more about X, tell me more about Y. And the more that you're playing them up because you really wanna get into bikes, that's the key. You have to really be interested in what they're saying. You have to be interested in these people. The more that you're interested in what they're saying and the value they provide with their experience, the more that they feel important. That's the 6 ways to make people like you. I'll have the timestamps and all that. Next section, win people to your way of thinking. I'm gonna go through all 12, and then I'm going to give you the actionable steps for them. The only way to get the best out of an argument is to avoid it. Show respect for the other person's opinions. Never say you're wrong. If you are wrong, admit it quickly and emphatically. Begin in a friendly way. Get the other person saying yes, yes immediately. Let the other person do a great deal of the talking. Let the other person feel that the idea is his or hers. Try honestly to see things from the other person's point of view. Be sympathetic to the other person's ideas and desires. Appeal to the nobler motives. Dramatize your ideas, throw down a challenge. Those are the 12 points to win people to your way of thinking. We're going to start breaking them down. Number 1, the only way to get the best out of an argument is to avoid it. Andrew Carnegie, in his book, described this in this kind of way. Let's say me and you were having an argument. The more that we argue, the less that we're trying to see each other's point, and the more we're trying to show each other our points. We don't have a connection. We're just trying to tell the other person why they're wrong and why I'm right. That's never going to work out. It just creates a disconnect. And arguments literally solve nothing. If you're being honest with yourself, arguments do not solve anything. Sure, you may feel better about yourself if you win, but now that other person resents you, you've severed a connection. Arguments do nothing, absolutely nothing. So you need to avoid them at all costs. Actionable step to avoid arguments: simply, when you feel yourself getting into an argument, just leave. It's gonna sound kind of crazy, but you can say me and you are starting to get heated into a heated conversation, none that is leading to anything good. I'm just gonna be like, listen bro, right now it seems like we're not getting through, so I'm just gonna dip and we can talk about this later. Boom, easy, and you leave. That's it. You just remove yourself from the conversation. Number 2, show respect for the other person's opinions. Never say you're wrong. This goes back to not condemning, which was a previous point that we had in the video. But when you say you're wrong, you're condemning them, and that making the other person view you in a bad light. It's like having sunglasses on. Let's say I am the sun and you're the person. Whatever I say, or whatever light I'm beaming down on you, you're not gonna see it because you have the sunglasses on. That's what happens when you condemn people, when you insult them. All of that shit is bull. Don't do it because people will not like you. And then you have a lot of people asking, well, why does nobody like me? Well, dude, if you shit on everybody's views and you try to tell yourself that you're better than everyone and you act pompous, no one's gonna want to be around you. It's pretty simple. Number 3, if you're wrong, admit it quickly and emphatically. Perfect. When you're wrong, dude. No amount of people skills is going to be able to maneuver or manipulate your way out of being wrong. If you're wrong, and that's just it. The best way I can kind of give you an actionable step for admitting your wrongs is just to be like, I was wrong. Boom! It's easy. Just say, I was wrong. And then agree with the other person's points. And then try to form a conclusion from there. Try to get to a solution. Because the point of arguments is that you have a view and the other person has a view, and you're trying to get to point A to point B. And you have an idea and they have an idea, but you're discrediting each other's ideas. Fuck all that. Let's just get to point B. We're at point A, let's get to point B. There's an easier way to get to point B instead of being at point A and trying to argue over trying to get to point B. Begin in a friendly way. This is pretty simple too. If I were to say, dude, what the fuck, you're stupid. Why would you think that? Not friendly. If I were to say, I think that there's some merit to that conversation, but what if we look at it like this? It's the same thing, but I just began more friendly. Actionable step here. Again, remove yourself from that ego pedestal. Because when you view yourself as a human, and you view everybody else as humans, you understand, hey, we all make mistakes. This is how Andrew Carnegie presented it in his book. This is not verbatim. But begin in a way such as, I may be wrong, and I am most of the time. And then you just explain your point. Super good tip. I've used that a lot. We're going to say that I think the sky is blue, and you think the sky is green. A good way to win people to your way of thinking, I would be like, well, I may be wrong, and most of the time I am, but if we look at the sky, and we look at the color blue, I'm pretty sure they match up. Is it unfair to say that? That goes into the next point, too. Get the other person saying yes immediately. Actionable step for that, use the phrase, I may be wrong, and most of the time I am. So, there's your actionable step. But get the other person saying yes immediately. This is basically how Socrates argued. He used the Socratic method, which he would get people to agree with him first, and then he would get to present his point in an agreeable light. So, super powerful. We're going to go back to the sky is blue example. Let's say I'm holding up a color of the sky, right? The same blue that the sky is. This is the shade of blue. And I'd be like, can you agree that this is blue? Yes. So can you agree that we have a sky? Yes. Can we agree that the sky is above us? Yes. So if we look above us and we look in the sky, can we agree that these are the same colors? Yeah. So then the sky is blue. So you just get people saying yes, and you're way more likely to get through to them because they're seeing you more in an agreeable light. You're finding common ground. And then you're closing that gap in a sense. You're closing that gap and people talk to you. Actionable step for this. An actionable step for this would study the Socratic method. Study a couple of Socrates debates and see what he did. And implement some of his steps just the way like I did. Let the other person do a great deal of the talking. Andrew Carnegie in his book framed this like, more that the person talks, if they're logical, they'll see how their argument is flawed and they'll come to your side. We can go back to active listening in that sense. You use your active listening skill in argumentative assets, but we don't want to do arguments. It's just the phrase. Let's say, for instance, we're still arguing about the sky thing. First, I'd be like, all right, well, tell me why you think the sky is green. And then we just keep following up. And then I would use the yes. Do you agree that this and this are the same? Yes. And then eventually, you agreeing with me and you talking about how you think the sky is green when it's not is going to make you be like, hold on a second, the sky might not be green. And when you get to that point, you're in a good spot because now the other person is in an agreeable light. So you can find common ground. That's when you can be like, listen, I may be wrong, most of the time I am, but hearing your argument and hearing mine, I believe that the sky may be blue. And then they'll be like, yeah, the sky is most likely blue, and I just didn't put in my contacts or whatever. And that's how you let the other person do a great deal of the talking, by just using the active listening method. Actionable step, watch that active listening video I put out and do some research. Number 7, this is very important. Let the other person feel that the idea is his or hers. When coming to a conclusion, even if it's your own, let the other person think it's theirs. This is removing ego once more, and I'll explain why. Because when you believe that a thought is yours, you get nowhere, because you're trying to get the credit for the thought. That credit, that validation, it boosts your ego. You have to remove ego completely when you're talking to people, because you guys are both human. No one's better, no one's worse. We're both just human. So, if you let the other person come to the conclusion by themselves, by thinking it's their idea, you go from point A to point B without having to do anything. It's like passive income in a sense. You just get there, and you don't have to do anything. You're at point A, you want to get to point B, so if you let the other person believe that, oh shoot, to get to point B I have to do this, even though it was your idea, and they carry it out, boom, you've solved you got what you wanted without having to do anything, even if it was your idea. Actionable step here, again, remove ego. It's super, super important that you remove ego when you're talking to people, and start letting other people take the credit for ideas, because if you're being honest, it's not that important. You just want the validation from the idea. You want the credit, it'll boost your ego. Remove ego. Ego is the enemy. There's a book about that, and if you guys want, we can do a book talk about that, Book Talk Saturday. Number 8, try to see things from the other person's point of view. I think I have to sneeze. Okay, I do not have to sneeze. We can go back to the sky example. If you thought that the sky was green, I would be like, alright, tell me why you think the sky is green. And I would remove myself, and I would just listen to you talk, and I would honestly and earnestly try to understand why you think the sky. So it's the hint, it's the hues, it's the tint of the sky, it's etc. You just keep going on. And then the more that you're kind of thinking, you're like, if I was this person, would I think the sky was green? Yes. So are they wrong, technically? No. So using that information, you use the previous points. You use the yes, and you get the I may be wrong, and most of the time I am. And then you present your point, and then they let you do the same because you gave them the courtesy. That's something that Andrew Carnegie hasn't really mentioned, but it's just kind of a thing that I've done, and it helps. When you give people the courtesy, they give it back. Let's say I open a door for you, and there's 2 doors. Most of the time, you're gonna open the door for me, because I just opened the door for you. That's just human nature. Actionable step is active listening again, dude. It's super simple. If you want to become social, you need active listening, and you don't need ego. If we were to summarize this book with all of these points, remove ego, remove active listening, and you'll do most of these subconsciously. But if you're a person like me and you need to consciously think about all of these, go ahead. That's what this video is here for. And there's timestamps and all of that so that you can go through each of the steps. Number 9, be sympathetic to the other person's ideas and desires. The way that I perceived this chapter, or this part of the chapter, was that other people's ideas and desires are motivation. And if you feel that motivation, you're more likely to stand up for something. It's the same as seeing the other person's point of view, basically. They tie into each other. The other person's point of view is formed by their ideas and desires. So once you understand both, it's a lot easier to understand what the person is thinking, because you have their ideas and desires, and you have their motivations. A simple actionable step for this would be ask questions that lead to the person exposing their ideas and desires. You can do this through active listening. Appeal to the nobler motives. This is a super, super helpful tip. The nobler motives is simply categorized as things that help society. Instead of starting a business for the pursuit of money, you start a business for the pursuit of purpose. Let's say I created a channel where I came to help people learn social skills so that our society would be better at communicating. That's a nobler purpose. Would I be getting money? Yes. But I'm not pursuing money, I'm pursuing the purpose. That's just an example. Dramatize your ideas. So, when you're dramatizing your ideas, you make them large, you make them grand. When you dramatize your ideas, they are a lot more likely to listen, because it's like a story, and people love stories. People evolve to hear stories, and be intrigued by them. You dramatize your ideas. You make them more grand. You make them more fun. People like fun things. Make your ideas fun. Make them grand, and people will naturally want to follow them. An actionable step for this would be practice using language that makes your ideas more fun. This is kind of like what you do when you're creating a pitch, in essence, a sales pitch. You don't say, do you want to buy this shoe? You say, do you want to enhance your looks for fashion? Let's say I wanted to sell you a bike. I wouldn't say, do you want to buy this bike? I'd say, do you want to go on a bunch of fun adventures with your friends and explore parts of the world that you've never seen? Obviously I want to do that, but do I want to buy a bike? No. But how do I do that? I do that by buying a bike. Study sales. That's your actionable step. Study sales pitches, because sales is life. You have to sell yourself to your job. You have to sell yourself to your wife. You have to sell yourself to everybody. Sales is life, if we're really thinking about it. Sales is the most lucrative career you can get into if you're looking to make money and you're looking to improve your social skills as well. Because you practice everything on this channel in a sales pitch or in public, and it works. So you get the practice by doing. Number 12, throw down a challenge. So throwing down a challenge makes people want to be involved with you, and you have to do it in a fun way, right? So we can go back to the sky is green, the sky is blue example. If I tell you, well, I may be wrong, and most of the time I am, but I think the sky is blue because of X. Do you have a rebuttal? Throwing down a chat. And then you throw down your rebuttal and we go back and forth, but it's not an argument because we're having fun. You have to make sure that when you throw down a challenge, it's in kind spirit. You're not doing it for the pursuit of the other person looking stupid. And throwing down a challenge is kind of advanced. You would have to study some more sales. There's a way to go about it. I'd say actionable step here is watch Socrates. Again, study more Socrates, because Socrates mastered most of the points in this book. Another actionable step, read the book itself. This is a book talk, and I do summarize all the points in the book. But reading the book allows you to get your own experience rather than a synthesized experience. So there's your actionable step. The next section, be a leader. How to change people without giving offense or arousing resentment. We're gonna go through all 9 sections real quick. Begin with praise and honest appreciation. Call attention to people's mistakes indirectly. Talk about your own mistakes before criticizing the other person. Ask questions instead of giving direct orders. Let the other person see face. Praise the slightest improvement and praise every improvement. Be hearty in your approbation and lavish in your praise. Give the other person a fine reputation to live up to. Use encouragement. Make the fault seem easy to correct, and make the other person happy about doing the things you suggest. Let's start at point 1. Begin with praise and honest appreciation. Humans are emotional creatures, and people love praise. If I tell you, let's say for instance you're in school, and you just got an A on a test. Good shit, bro. I'm sure you studied hard for that test, and I'm glad you got an A. That's praise. Keep going. Keep up the good work. It's praise. People love praise. People love to be praised. It helps that ego. It helps the self-esteem. It helps everything. So when you make people feel good about themselves through praise, they like you because you're the reason they got that dopamine hit or whatever. You go to a psychological level or whatever, but it doesn't really matter. The more you praise people, the more people like you. That's simple. Actionable step here would be to practice praise. And another actionable step would be to practice praise on women. How do you think women interact with each other? They interact by giving each other praise. I like your nails. Your hair looks so cute. I love your outfit today. People like to be praised, especially women. It's not like a thing, but when you challenge a man likes to be challenged because that means he can live up to the expectation and yada yada. It's a pride thing. Women love to be praised because it's like an emotional thing. Number 2, call attention to people's mistakes indirectly. Let's say when I'm doing the dishes that I accidentally drop a fork in the garbage disposal, and you come in after me and you turn on the garbage disposal and you hear the ding 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 whatever. A good way for you to indirectly call out people's mistakes would be, hey, I think somebody left a fork in this garbage disposal. You're not calling attention to anybody to do it. And then you can follow that up by saying, it's nobody's fault. I just think we should be more careful. When you take off the pressure of making a mistake, people are more likely to correct it themselves. Actionable step, stop condemning people. Stop condemning, stop criticizing. We already talked about this. Number 3, talk about your own mistakes before criticizing the other person. Super, super good point. I kind of call attention to, I did this in my last video too, but when I was talking about body language, I gave you an example of how I messed up, and then I gave you an example about how I fixed a mistake. You can connect with me more because, hey, I've messed up too. We're all human, but here's how I got here. Let's say, for instance, that you are not supposed to write your name on X line, you're supposed to write your name on a Y line. If we're doing a school assignment, be like, hey man, I think the name is supposed to be written on this line. I kind of had to figure that out myself because I wrote it on the same line. You're not calling the other person out. Instead, you're calling yourself out and observing the mistake indirectly. Now I feel less pressure. You're like, okay, well shit, let me erase it, put it on this line. Thanks, bro. It's just kind of like the way that you need to go around people is to kind of call yourself out, because when you call yourself out, it's kind of like a game. Andrew Carnegie did this in the book too. He had a dog, and on this dog, he would take him off the leash and take off his muzzle because there was an open field. And then a police officer caught him once and was like, you can't do that, man. A dog this big with no leash and no muzzle, someone's gonna get hurt. Andrew Carnegie was like, understood, my bad, won't happen again, officer. But Andrew Carnegie comes back in like a week or so, 2 weeks, and he's like, fuck it, bro. I'm gonna take my dog off the leash, and I'm not gonna put him on a muzzle, because he's not having it, and that's fine. But guess who comes around the hill as soon as the dog is running up? It's the police officer. Andrew Carnegie immediately, instead of trying to protect himself, he's like, I'm wrong, officer. You told me 2 weeks before not to have my dog out here without a leash and without a muzzle, and I fucked up. I'm sorry. And then the officer was like, oh, well, now I know that this dog is super happy. Oh, well, officer, you know I'm not supposed to do it, and I know I broke the law, and I could serve jail. Oh, well, but... And they just kept going back and forth. Eventually, the officer let him off because he admitted his mistake first in the view of authority of other people. Actionable step here would be to admit your mistakes. So number 4 is to ask questions instead of giving direct orders. Let's say, for instance, we're going back to that name example. We have a school assignment and you've written your name on the wrong line, and I've done it, and yada yada. Another way to go about that would be to be like, are we supposed to write our name on this line or that line? Because I don't know. I wrote it on this line, but I'm not sure. I erased it, I wrote it on this line. Do you know which one is right? And then if they look at the paper and it says name on this line and it says date on the other line, and they wrote their name on the date line, they'll be like, oh shit, yeah, it's the name line. Oh, thank you, bro. And then you keep yours there, but you've made them erase it and write it on the name line without you having to ask them to do it. You just asked the question. Actionable step is kind of in the answer itself. Ask questions instead of giving direct orders. Number 5, let the other person save face. Andrew Carnegie, when he says save face, he means shield them from the blame. We've talked about this in a bunch of the other examples in this scenario, in this section. But have them save face. Let them keep their ego. Let them keep their self-esteem. You don't have to drag people down when you make them do what you want to do, because then people won't like you. And we're talking about how to win friends and influence people. Let them save face. Make sure you're indirectly asking them. Make sure you're admitting your own mistakes. Make sure that you're doing all of the things that we've talked about so far, and you'll help other people save face. And throw yourself under the bus first. Remove yourself from the ego, take yourself off that pedestal, and allow yourself to save face. Number 6, praise the slightest improvement and praise every improvement. Be hearty in your approbation and lavish in your praise. Just praise more, bro. We've already talked about begin with praise and honest appreciation. If we're going back to the name writing example, you can say, dude, I love your handwriting. But you have to begin with praise. And then let's say you guys are sitting next to each other again, and then he writes his name on the name line, and then you don't write your name at all because you're kind of like doing an experiment. And you're like, hey bro, do you know where I should write my name? Just sounds stupid, who cares, right? Oh, you write it here. Oh, sick, bro, thanks. Thank you for helping me. Thank you for pointing that out to me. Whatever, just be lavish in your praise. That's not the best example, we'll do another one. So let's say you're at a skate park, right? And you're trying to learn how to ollie. And there's somebody that you're skating with, and they learn how to ollie first. Dude, that's sick. You just ollied. You got so much airtime. Yada yada. That's a clean out, your steezy ass ollie. You're just being lavish in your praise. You're just complimenting. And then, if you're trying to learn how to ollie yourself, actively listen. Hey bro, how do you ollie? How long did it take you to learn how to ollie? How long have you been skateboarding? What kind of board do you skate? An 8.5, 7.75? What size board do you skate? Yada yada. And then just keep praising them. You have to be very, very lavish in your praise. This is your actionable step. Replace every single bit of condemnation with praise and just see the effect that it has. The less that you condemn people and the more that you praise them, the more that people will like you. It's simple. Number seven. Give the other person a fine reputation to live up. Very, very interesting point. Why do you think Andrew Carnegie would say this? Because Andrew Carnegie knows people. He did a study. He wrote this book based off of a talk, based off of a bunch of interviews. When you give somebody a fine reputation to live up to, they live up to it because they like you. Say, for instance, your friend, you guys play Fortnite or whatever, and that's your duo's partner. Bro, you're sick. You keep dropping 20 bombs, whatever, and you give them a reputation of always dropping 20 bombs. Whenever you drop in with bro, he's gonna be going crazy. He's gonna be slaughtering. He's gonna find that golden scar. He's gonna slaughter, he's gonna murder, he's gonna kill it, he's gonna keep dropping 20 bombs because that's his reputation. And when you give somebody a reputation, they attach it to their identity. That's why bullying is super, super not cool. Because when you give somebody the reputation of a loser, when you give somebody the reputation of somebody that's not worth, they attach that to their identity, and now they feel like that for life. And they go through life thinking that they're a loser, or that they're not worth anything. When you give somebody a good reputation to live up to, they attach it to their identity, and they improve as a person. Super powerful message. That's why Andrew Carnegie put this in his book, to give the other person a fine reputation to live up to. Actionable step here. Set standards for people. If you skate with somebody and they do a lot of flip tricks, give the person the reputation that they do the best flip tricks. And then the more that you go to the skate park with them, they're gonna start pulling out some crazy shit. 360 nollie trays. That's a crazy example, but dude, you'd be surprised what happens if you give somebody a fine reputation. Keep improving. Number 8, use encouragement. Make the fault seem easy to correct. When you're using encouragement, it's been kind of misconstrued in our modern day society. You're doing so well, keep it up, yada yada. But let's say me and you are fighting, right? Me and you are fighting because we box together. We're sparring partners. And I noticed that whenever I slip your right, you drop your guard, and I keep jabbing you. I keep jabbing you. I keep jabbing you. I keep jabbing you. And then eventually we walk out the ring, and you're like, dude, that was a good spar session. I'm like, yeah, bro, that was a 6 spar session, dog. You're doing really good. Keep it up. I do notice though, when I slip your right, your guard drops, and that's why I was able to jab you. It's super easy to correct, bro. Whenever I slip that right, just hit me in the face. When you give people the answer and you make the fault seem easy to correct, people will like you. And listen, next time you slip that right, he's gonna smack the shit out of you. Actionable step here, encourage people, and you can use all of these. You use all of these steps in your encouragement and to make the fault seem easy to correct. So always downplay getting to A to B. So don't be like, yeah, bro, I just beat the fuck out. Don't do that. Make the fault seem easy to correct. Number 9, and the last point before we drop into all of the quotes that Andrew Carnegie has said that help with this, how to win friends and influence people. We have make the other person happy about doing the thing you suggest. And it's simple. If you're happy about wanting to improve your social life and getting out of your shell and hopping into the social realm, if you're happy about it, you're gonna do it. Now, how do I make you happy about it? I go through all the steps that I've listed above. I praise you. I make the fault seem easy to correct. I actively listen. If we hop on a coaching call, I give you the steps. I talk about my mistakes first. And when you make the other person happy to do the other thing you suggest, it's by following all the steps that we've talked about in this video. Don't be a dickhead, just be yourself. Authentically listen and give compliments, give praise, give encouragement, and then people will want to do it. Think about it. Think about the teachers you like. When they tell you to do something, are you happy to do it? Yeah. Why? Because you like them. Now think about a teacher you hate. When they tell you to do something, are you happy to do it? No. Why? Because you hate them. How do you get people to like you? Praising, encouragement, and then being on the same level. Take your ego out of the equation, and then use all the steps that we've talked about. That's the actionable step, basically. This first quote is a quote about criticism, and this is what Andrew Carnegie says. Criticism is futile because it puts a person on the defensive and usually makes him strive to justify himself. Criticism is dangerous because it wounds a person's precious pride, hurts his sense of importance, and arouses resentment. Any fool can criticize, condemn, and complain, and most fools do. But it takes character and self-control to be understanding and forgiving. This is in the book, by the way. This is going back to condemnation versus encouragement and praise. Any person can condemn. Condemnation is super easy. When you can praise rather than condemn, it takes character to do that. It takes character to find the good in the bad. And that's what's going to make people like you, finding the good in the bad. We're going to get into the second quote here. People are emotional. When dealing with people, let us remember we are not dealing with creatures of logic. We are dealing with creatures of emotion. Creatures bristling with prejudice and motivated by pride and vanity. That's just people. If you want to know what people are, this quote right here. People are vain. People are emotional. People have prejudices and stereotypes, and people don't care. They are selfish. That's people. If you want to become social, you have to understand this, and you have to confine to this notion right here. This is how people are. This is how all people operate naturally in the brain. All of these points pander to that. This is the key to influencing others. The only way on earth to influence other people is to talk about what they want and show them how to get it. Simple. So if you wanted $10,000, you would listen to me. If I told you about SMMA, copywriting, ghostwriting, all of these different methods to make $10,000 because you want $10,000. You'd listen to me, and you try it, you get 10,000, you'd be like, thank you, bro, and then I praise and encourage you, and then we form a friendship. It's pretty simple. If we're going to break this down, provide valuable assets through your words, based on experience, to get people what they want, and they will like you. That's how you influence people. This is the last quote. The secret of success. If there is any one secret of success, it lies in the ability to get the other person's point of view and see things from that person's angle as well as from your own. Super powerful. When you are arguing with somebody, do you ever look at how they're thinking about the situation? Think. If you were to look at how the other person sees the situation and how you see the situation, would there be an overlap? Or would they not mesh at all? If they don't mesh, then you need to remove your ego from the situation and think about how the other person is seeing it. Because they're not just coming out of the wazoo. They're not just saying shit for no reason. They're saying shit because that's how they honestly, earnestly feel. The key takeaway here is to find out what other people are thinking through their ideas and their point of view, and find a solution based on both of your needs. It's pretty simple. That's the first BTS, the first Book Talk Saturday. If I added value to you, you can provide me value as well by sharing, liking, subbing. I do coaching, so if you'd like to work one-on-one with me, click that top link in the description. I'm also going to add the active listening guide in there as well. It's a super important piece of becoming social. And I've mentioned it a couple of times in this video. Thank you